Good about SM viewers, this is Satellite Media. If you are new to the channel, kindly like, share, subscribe, and please do not forget to hit the notification bell. Let us quickly look at this development. Of course, this one is coming from Reverend Kukah. Reverend Kukah is a known person in the political space of Nigeria, a Reverend Father from the Catholic community, of course, the Bishop of Sokoto Diocese. But this time around, I'm reading from People's Gazette, and we are getting conversation from Twitter. Of course, he made it very clear, say, Poplio's election, not like Tinubu's snatch and run politics, Bishop Kukah. Remember that Tinubu was in Rome the other time, sequel to the inauguration of the new Pope. But we are going to be looking at reaction from Nigerians with respect to what is coming from Kukah, whether as a Reverend Father, as a man of God, whether he's justified to be making comments of criticism against the government. But let me quickly read this one that is coming from Adeyemi. He said, men of God in Nigeria don't understand the importance of separation between the church and the state. You go further to say that religion and government is, in a democracy, it is like oil and water that doesn't ever miss. But let me go further and get reaction from other Nigerians. This one is coming from Onovu Nkem. He said, a lot of laugh. I thought Tinubu made this man a pro-chancellor to shut him up. Of course, we understand that he was given, I think, pro-chancellor of one of the universities in Kaduna State. It means Reverend Kukah is someone that cannot be cowed, whether by appointment or anything of that nature. But let me go further to get reaction from Nigerians, what they are equally saying. This one is from Lling. He says, snatch it, grab it, and run with it. I think he's referring to the statement that came from Tinubu in the build-up to the 2023 presidential election. This one is coming from Chidebere Ifeanyi. He said, oh, he can now speak up. Interesting. But let me quickly remind this Chidebere that Reverend Kukah has always spoken up. But again, I think this will take me to the statement that came from, I'll play the video anyway, but this will take me to the statement that came from Reverend Wilfred. Let me play the video of Reverend Wilfred and we'll come back to further this conversation.
Killing hundreds in Plateau and Benue with the worst massacre claiming 47 people. The militant also burned down the 8 Catholic churches of St. Mary's Parish in the Diocese of Boko, which in Benue State, as well as the parish house, clinics, schools, and other houses. The militant Fulani herdsmen bear on defenseless villagers without consequences. They follow orders to conquer, kill, and occupy. They attack even those who have managed to escape into our IDP camps. Thereby, they have no place to run to. And it is unfortunate that the police system in Nigeria, orders have to come from above. And such that once there's a call, and they say they have never responded. And by the time they arrive, these people have left and the people are now living in the pool of their blood. What I have recounted above is happening not only in Benue State. I believe our experience in Benue is symptomatic of what is happening elsewhere in large parts of Nigeria. The experience of the Nigerian Christians today can be summed up as that of a church under Islamist extermination.
Prophetess Rosemary Peter, you are welcome. Let us have your insight. We are talking about men of God criticizing the government. Of course, we saw the one that came from Reverend Kukah, talking about the President Senator Ahmed Bola Tinubu advising him that Pope's election is not the grab and run system that operates in Nigeria. And some people on Twitter are saying, you are a man of God, you are not expected to contribute, or you are not expected to criticize the government. We have seen how the Tinubu government gave him appointment in Kaduna State, but that's not to have deterred him from, of course, criticizing. As a woman of God, do you think Reverend Kukah, as a man of God, is justified to criticize Tinubu in this regard? Let me get your take.
Okay, I think Reverend Kukah is justified. Bible says, let your nail be nail and not your yes be yes. As a child of God, he's a light. Darkness cannot comprehend light. Darkness cannot comprehend light. As a child of God, he meant to advise anybody that's not getting it right. If Tinubu is not getting it right, he's bound to advise him. So it's not wrong advising him is justified by what he said. He's saying the truth.
So what's your message to Nigerians who are telling Reverend Kukah, you are wrong, don't dabble into advising the president or rather criticizing the president, stay in your calling, stay in your pulpit? What's your message for them?
I think Reverend Kukah is a Nigerian.
Yes, he's a Nigerian from
he's bound to exercise
Benue State, serving.
He's bound to exercise his right as a Nigerian. So he's a Nigerian. The Bible makes me to understand, to understand that Joseph was a child of God. And God made him a prime minister in the land of Egypt. He's a prime minister. So he has right to contribute to anything that has to do in this country because he's what? He's a bona fide child of this country. So he has right to contribute to anything in this country. So it's not wrong. Whoever that criticizes anything maybe does not know what they're saying.
I must say very big thank you for your time. Thank you very much. So you are welcome back. I think you have heard from the horse's mouth, of course, from a woman of God telling us that Reverend Kukah is justified to actually make his contribution to issue of Nigeria. We understand that Reverend Kukah is a Nigerian, of course, from he's from one of the states in the Middle Belt, talking about Benue, but currently he served as the Bishop of Sokoto Diocese in the Kani community. So to that extent, he's a Nigerian. Of course, if Reverend Kukah decides to contest the election in Nigeria, he's eminently qualified. That reminds me of the current governor of Benue State talking about Reverend Father Alia. Of course, even though the Kani community suspended him when he decided to throw himself into the ring and contest for that position, but in that election, he was very popular and he won that election. So it goes to show that Reverend Kukah as a Nigerian, of course, who is concerned about the happenings in Nigeria, is justified to contribute his quota, or rather to even criticize the government in the area he feels that the government is not getting it right. But I think the criticism have to be objective, and Reverend Kukah is someone I know who is objective in his criticism, because if you look at the basis for which he criticizes, it borders on good governance. It borders on how the principle of the tenets of our democracy. Because if you look at the grab and run system he referred to, of course, we understand that the build up to the 2023 presidential election, the president, Senator Tinubu, who was the then candidate of APC, made that statement talking about position in politics that is not served on table, that you need to grab and run with it. And of course, we saw what characterized that election. In some parts of the Nigeria, we saw some people being hounded, being intimidated, being voters being suppressed. Of course, that took part, that happened in that election. So looking at the man who is in the saddle now, talking about Senator Tinubu, even if Nigerians, including myself, may not be comfortable with the way and manner he got that position, but the Supreme Court has validated that election. To that extent, we must also submit to the supremacy of the Supreme Court, because if you look at election litigation in Nigeria, the Supreme Court is the highest arbiter. So the decision is final. Though the decision is final, not because they are infallible, because they are human that gives that decision. A judge in that Supreme Court who have retired, made it very clear that their decision is final because they are final, not because they are infallible. So to that extent, for the sanctity of the system of Nigeria, we must also submit to the judgment of that court. To that extent, Senator Tinubu's election has been validated. But however, to deepen the democracy, there's every need to amend the Electoral Act. That Electoral Act will enable us going forward to start having an election that is more free, fair, and credible. We understand that the issue of election management has been a very serious one in Nigeria. In the build-up to the 2023 presidential election, every stakeholder was concerned, to the point that pressure was on National Assembly that had the power to amend the act. Of course, they amended the act at a point and gave INEC the discretion to determine the mode of transfer of election results. And before the election, when INEC will come out with their guideline, they told Nigerians that they were going to transmit election results electronically. Of course, that gave everyone some relief. But unfortunately, at the nick of time, they reneged and they gave excuse of network glitch. As we have it, the election result was contested up to the Supreme Court. And the basis for which the election result was contested was Nigerians were not satisfied that there was a genuine network glitch and that the collation process was actually genuine, was correct. Because what INEC told us was that they were going to send results from polling unit to IREF, meaning after voting from the polling unit level, the result being entered into from EC8A, the INEC ad hoc staff, of course, the NYC core member, will snap the result, sent to IRF, where political gladiators, stakeholders, whether election observers, whether politicians, whether locally or internationally, who have access to the server, follow the results as they're coming in. Then you can even have your own situation room, just as INEC will have their own situation room. And by our standard, the result is supposed to tally, since it's from the same source. That at the end of the day, INEC will come up with their own decision who wins the election. But all that we didn't see happen because INEC reneged in their promise. That's why we are calling on the stakeholders, particularly opposition political party leaders like P2B, like Atiku, like Kwankwaso, like Lamido, the former governor of Jigawa State, like the former governor of Kaduna State, talking about Lasi El-Rufai, Baba Chilawa, the former governor of Secretary to Federal Government, to put pressure, to govern Nigerians, to put pressure on the National Assembly to amend that Electoral Act further, particularly Section 82, that this will be the mode of transfer of election results. Because until you do that, I must tell you that if we go into the next round of election with this current status quo, we are coming back to sing the same song. A situation where Nigerians will not be satisfied with the election process or rather the collation. Because the problem is that the politicians will allow you to vote. When it comes to collation of results, of course, that is where they will come in and start their manipulation, because our system is susceptible to manipulation. Because by the time you start moving the election results from polling units to ward collation level, from ward collation level to local government, from local government to state, from state to national, of course, between that process of moving from unit level to state level, all the manipulation would have taken place. We have the INEC that, of course, is the end user of that Electoral Act. We have the police, the DSS, the army. All of these government agencies have role to play when it comes to the election management. And of course, all these are people who are appointed by the president. There's a saying that he who pays the piper takes the tone. We're equally talking about the funding of INEC, the appointment of INEC commissioners, that it should not be restricted to one man alone. Because currently, all the resident electoral commissioners that serve INEC in all the various states are appointed by Mr. President. There have been so many accusations in the past how some persons who are appointed will be accused of being members of political parties. And we understand that their funding is from the federal government. So a situation where the INEC chairman go cap in hand to the president asking for funds makes it susceptible to manipulation by the power that gives him that money. That's why we are saying that the funding of INEC going forward should be first line charge. Of course, I understand that that is the funding of FEMA, talking about Federal Road Maintenance Agency. So if their funding is first line charge, it's constitutional, it is drawn from an agency of government or rather funding source. That way, the president or whoever it had to give the money cannot use the opportunity of giving the money to start manipulating the INEC personnel. But what we have currently, I must tell you that is susceptible to manipulation. And again, who says that we cannot go forward start having independent candidacy? There are so many areas that need to be reshuffled, that need to be rejected when it comes to the INEC, that particular electoral act that will govern the election come 2027. I think as stakeholders, we can not keep quiet. We must continue making this advocacy until the right thing is done. I will say very big thank you for your time. We'll come back to it because this is a developing story, and as going concern, we always bring you a report as it comes. This is Satellite Media and I'm Mr. Martin. Thank you very much.